I'm Claire Mitchell, 29, and tonight was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. The kind of night little girls dream about, where every detail glows like a scene from a movie. The downtown ballroom shimmered under soft golden lights, the city skyline glittering beyond the tall glass windows. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air as music drifted from the live band in the corner. Everywhere I looked, faces beamed. Friends, coworkers, cousins, all gathered to celebrate me and Ryan, my fiancé, my soon-to-be husband. I stood there in a silver dress that caught the light like water, the diamond on my finger winking every time I lifted a glass of champagne. For once, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Ryan was across the room, deep in conversation with his college friends, his dark hair catching the glow of the chandeliers. He looked proud, confident, and every so often, his gaze would meet mine with a smile that melted me all over again. I'd waited so long for this kind of love, the steady, mature kind that promised forever. People said we were perfect together, and maybe I believed it. At least, I did until that moment. I was thanking a guest when I noticed her. Evelyn, Ryan's mother. Impeccably dressed in navy silk, posture flawless, pearls gleaming at her throat. She'd been polite all evening, her compliments clipped but cordial. Still, there was something about her smile, a sharpness beneath the grace that always made my stomach tighten. When she approached, I braced myself for another polite comment or thinly veiled critique. Instead, she touched my arm lightly, her manicured nails cool against my skin. "Come with me for a moment, dear," she said, her tone smooth, almost sweet. I followed her toward a quiet corner near the window, away from the laughter and the band's gentle melody. The city lights flickered behind her like 1,000 watching eyes. She leaned in close, her perfume, something floral and expensive, curling around me. Her lips parted, her smile still perfectly in place. And that's when she whispered the words that would splinter the night in two. "That ring was meant for his ex, darling, not you." The words slipped from Evelyn's lips like venom disguised as silk. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd misheard her. The music dimmed. Conversations blurred into white noise. All I could hear was the pounding of my own pulse. My mouth went dry. "I'm sorry." "What?" I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. Evelyn's smile didn't waver. Her eyes, a cold blue, glinted with something between pity and pleasure. "It's a beautiful ring, isn't it? Classic, timeless. Ryan has good taste. He always did. Emily adored it." Emily. The name hit me like ice water. His ex. The one he'd only mentioned in passing, always with that careful neutrality that told me not to ask more. Evelyn reached out, brushing my hand, her gaze flicking to the diamond on my finger. "It suits you, of course, though it was chosen with someone else in mind." She let the words linger, savoring them, before gliding away toward a cluster of guests as if nothing had happened. I stood frozen by the window. The sounds of celebration muffled, distant. The diamond on my hand caught the light, suddenly heavier, colder, a stranger's jewel pressed against my skin. My breath came shallow as I tried to piece together what she meant. Was it true? Could Ryan have proposed to Emily with this same ring? My mind replayed every detail of his proposal, the nervous laugh, the slight hesitation before he opened the box. Back then, I thought it was nerves, emotion. Now it felt like something else. The crowd laughed somewhere behind me, oblivious to the crack forming inside my perfect night. I forced a smile, nodding as a friend called my name, pretending everything was fine while my stomach twisted. Evelyn was across the room, chatting easily with a group of women, her laughter soft, practiced. She didn't glance my way once. I swallowed hard, blinking back the sting of tears, and clutched my champagne flute tighter. The ring sparkled again under the chandeliers, mocking me. That whisper replayed in my head over and over, slicing through the music. That ring was meant for his ex. That night, after everyone left and the echoes of laughter faded into the city hum, I sat alone on my bed, staring at the ring. It caught the light from my bedside lamp, scattering tiny shards of reflection across the wall. Beautiful, brilliant, and suddenly unbearable. My fingers traced the smooth band, the diamond perfectly set, flawless. Too perfect, too practiced. My mind drifted back to the proposal, that night on the beach when Ryan dropped to one knee under a sky full of stars. I'd been so caught up in the moment that I hadn't noticed how his hand shook as he fumbled with the box. The velvet case slipped once, landing in the sand, and we'd both laughed, thinking it was nerves. Now, the memory felt different. Was he trembling because of me, or because of what that ring represented? He'd said he wanted something classic, meaningful, a symbol that lasts. At the time, I'd melted at his words, but now they sounded like a script, rehearsed, borrowed from another time. I lifted the ring closer, the diamond glinting, and whispered to the empty room, "Who did you belong to?" The thought made my stomach knot. I'd never asked about his past with Emily beyond the polite, surface-level curiosity. He'd brushed it off, saying it ended amicably, that they just weren't right for each other. I hadn't wanted to pry. I told myself everyone deserves to leave the past behind, but Evelyn's words replayed again and again, turning that belief into something fragile and foolish. I slipped the ring off and set it on the nightstand. Without it, my hand felt strangely bare, like my skin could finally breathe. The diamond sparkled under the lamplight, but it wasn't comforting anymore. It felt like a secret staring back at me. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that moment. The box, the fumbling, the smile he gave me that suddenly felt like a mask. What if this symbol of our future was really a ghost from his past? Ryan Hayes, 31, tall, charming, with that effortless confidence that made everyone lean in when he spoke. From the day we met at the marketing conference 2 years ago, he'd felt like gravity, steady, magnetic, impossible to ignore. He was the kind of man who opened doors, remembered coffee orders, and left good morning notes on the counter. I used to tell my friends he was the calm after years of storms. We met when I was exhausted from dating men who treated commitment like a joke. Ryan had felt different, mature, grounded. He said he admired my ambition, that I made him want to be better. And I believed him. Our relationship moved fast. Within months, we were inseparable. Weekend trips, dinner parties, plans for the future that felt like promises etched in stone. He'd tell me he'd never met anyone like me, that he finally knew what real love was. I'd felt chosen, special, needed. But now, Evelyn's whisper had cracked something deep inside me. That ring, that night, every look and compliment, all of it was under question. I began noticing things I'd ignored before. How he'd flinch when someone mentioned his ex's name. How he'd dodge questions about the past with a tight smile and a quick change of subject. I remembered one night, early on, when I'd asked how long he and Emily were together. His answer was clipped. 3 years. It's over. Let's not dig up old graves. I'd laughed awkwardly and dropped it, thinking he just didn't want to revisit old pain. But now I wasn't so sure. Maybe he wasn't protecting his heart? Maybe he was protecting a story he didn't want me to know. I tried to shake the thought, but it clung like a shadow. Every time he kissed me, I wondered who he saw. Every time I looked at the ring, I felt her ghost between us. And though I smiled when he called me his forever, something inside whispered a truth I didn't want to face. Maybe I wasn't the first woman he promised forever to. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evelyn's smirk and the ring's cruel sparkle. The city outside my window was quiet, but inside my chest, everything roared. At 2 a.m., I gave up pretending and reached for my phone. I opened Ryan's Instagram, scrolling through the years before we met. Most of it was work trips, gym selfies, dinners with friends, the usual. Then, buried deep in his feed, I found it. A photo from almost 3 years ago. Ryan was smiling at some fancy restaurant, candlelight soft on his face. Across the table sat a woman, just her hand in view, slightly blurred, reaching toward him. But it wasn't her face that caught my attention. It was her hand, her left hand. A diamond ring glittered there, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. The cut, the setting, the way it caught the light. It looked exactly like mine. I zoomed in, my pulse pounding, willing myself to be wrong. Maybe it wasn't the same ring. Maybe I was imagining it, reading too much into a stranger's jewelry. But then I noticed the box on the table beside the wine glasses. The same deep blue velvet box that now sat in my nightstand drawer. The photo's caption read, "Some moments change everything." Hundreds of likes. Comments filled with heart emojis and congratulations. My throat went dry. "Emily," someone had written beneath it. "So happy for you both." I scrolled through the replies, searching for something that would make it make sense. But the comments ended abruptly, the trail cold, like he'd tried to bury it. The photo was still there, though, a digital ghost he hadn't erased. I locked my phone and sat in the dark, the glow of the screen still burning behind my eyelids. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the ring wasn't the same. But the word maybe didn't comfort me. It mocked me. I glanced at the engagement ring on my finger, its once perfect sparkle now laced with doubt. I wanted to believe in Ryan, in us, but a small voice inside whispered what I didn't want to admit, that love built on secrets never lasts. The morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen counter, soft and golden, but it did nothing to warm the space between us. Ryan was humming as he flipped pancakes, wearing the same easy grin he always did on Sunday mornings. I sat at the table, staring at my untouched coffee, watching him move with practiced comfort. It should have felt normal, safe. But every sound, the sizzle of butter, the clink of silverware, echoed with tension I couldn't swallow. He turned, holding out a plate. "You okay? You look tired." I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." He sat across from me, his blue eyes curious but cautious. "Something on your mind?" he asked. My fingers brushed the ring. "I was just thinking about the proposal," I said lightly, my voice calm, too calm. "You never told me where you got the ring." His smile faltered for a second, almost too quick to notice. "Oh, a boutique downtown. Can't remember the name." I tilted my head. "Really?" "The jeweler's name is engraved inside the box. It says, Barker and Sons." His fork froze midair. "Right, yeah, that's it," he said, forcing a chuckle. Guess I forgot. I studied him. His laugh sounded wrong, hollow, nervous. "You must have picked it out a while ago," I said softly. "It's very specific." His gaze sharpened, a flicker of something defensive flashing across his face. "Why are you asking about this all of a sudden?" "Just curious," I lied, though the air between us felt anything but casual. He shrugged, stabbing his pancake, pretending not to care. "You're overthinking things, Claire." The way he said it made my chest tighten, like I was being scolded for noticing too much. I nodded, pretending to drop it, but inside, everything screamed. That tiny shift in his tone, the flash of irritation, it told me what his words didn't. He was hiding something, and for the first time since he'd slipped that ring on my finger, I didn't see my future in his eyes. I saw a stranger who might be lying straight to my face. By Monday, the weight of pretending was suffocating. Every text from Ryan felt like a performance. Every "love you" a question mark I couldn't ignore. I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't tell me I was crazy, someone who actually knew me. So that night, I called Jordan. We'd been friends since college. He had this uncanny ability to see straight through me, no matter how hard I tried to hide behind calm smiles. "You sound off," he said the second he answered. "What's going on?" I hesitated, biting my lip, then told him everything. Evelyn's whisper, the photo, Ryan's defensiveness, the way the ring suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Jordan sighed. "I knew something was off about that guy." "You've barely met him," I said, but even I didn't believe my protest. "Still," he replied, his voice firm, "he's too polished. The kind of man who likes control more than connection. Remember what you told me about his ex, Emily?" My stomach tightened. "What about her?" Jordan hesitated. "A friend of mine used to work with one of Ryan's coworkers. There were rumors when they broke up. Something about him not taking it well, showing up at her place after they ended things. He made a scene." My breath caught. "He told me they ended things mutually." "Of course he did." Jordan's tone softened. "Claire, I don't think you're wrong to question this. But don't just sit on it. Find the truth. If he's lying, you deserve to know." His words steadied me. He was right. I'd spent too much time convincing myself to trust Ryan, to believe in his version of events. But trust wasn't blind faith. It was proof. And I needed that now more than ever. "How?" I asked quietly. "Where do I even start?" "The ring," Jordan said simply. "You've got a name engraved inside the box. That's not nothing." His calm certainty settled over me like armor. After we hung up, I sat in silence, the ring box in my palm, Barker and Sons carved in tiny gold letters. The truth might hurt, but ignorance was worse. Tomorrow, I'd find out where this story really began. The next morning, the world felt sharper, colder. I drove downtown through the rush hour blur, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Barker and Sons was tucked between a coffee shop and a florist, the kind of old-fashioned jewelry store that gleamed with quiet elegance. I paused at the door, clutching the velvet ring box, wondering if I was about to destroy my engagement or finally see it for what it really was. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polish and roses. A young clerk greeted me with a polite smile. "Can I help you find something?" "Actually," I said, forcing my voice steady, "I'm hoping you can tell me about a purchase." I placed the ring box on the counter. Her expression shifted slightly as she opened it, her eyes flicking from the diamond to me. "That's one of ours, all right," she said softly. "Classic design, white gold band, round-cut diamond, custom order." My stomach clenched. "Can you tell me who bought it?" She hesitated, glancing around before lowering her voice. "Normally, we don't disclose client information, but—" She turned the box, inspecting the serial engraving on the inside of the band. Then she looked back at me, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "This ring was purchased about 1.5 years ago by a Mr. Ryan Hayes, for an Emily Carter." The name hit like a physical blow. My mouth went dry, but I managed to whisper, "You're sure?" She nodded. "Positive. I remember because he was very particular about the cut. He said it had to be perfect for her." The words blurred in my ears. Perfect for her. My vision tunneled, the ground tilting beneath me. I thanked her somehow, though I barely heard my own voice, and walked out into the sunlight that suddenly felt too bright. Cars honked, people hurried past, but the world had gone silent around me. The ring on my finger wasn't a symbol of love anymore. It was evidence. Proof of a lie wrapped in gold and diamonds. Ryan hadn't just recycled a ring. He'd recycled a promise. By the time I pulled into Evelyn's driveway, my hands were trembling. Her manicured garden looked just as polished as she did. Neat, composed, and cold. I hadn't told Ryan I was coming. This was between me and her. She opened the door almost immediately, that same pleasant smile pasted on her face. "Claire," she said smoothly. "What a surprise. Come in." The scent of lavender and something sharp, lemon cleaner maybe, filled the house. Every surface gleamed, every photo frame perfectly aligned. I followed her into the sitting room, my heart pounding in my chest. She gestured for me to sit, but I stayed standing, clutching my bag like a shield. "You knew," I said finally, "about the ring, about Emily." Her expression didn't flicker, just the smallest arch of one brow. "I see he hasn't told you." "So it's true?" I pressed, my voice low. "He proposed to her first. With this ring?" Evelyn sighed delicately, folding her hands in her lap. "Yes, he did." The words sliced through the air like glass. She didn't even sound ashamed. "Emily was a lovely girl," she continued, polished, poised. She understood our family's values. "You remind me of her in some ways, but—" Her eyes trailed over me, assessing, judging. "You're different. You challenge him. Emily knew her place." My pulse quickened, anger and disbelief tangled tight. "And you thought I didn't deserve to know?" "I thought you'd find out eventually," she said calmly. "Better from me than from gossip. Consider it a kindness." A kindness. The nerve of it made me laugh. A sharp, humorless sound. "You didn't do it to be kind," I said. "You did it to hurt me." For the first time, her smile faltered, replaced by something almost pitying. "You're not the first woman to think she can fix Ryan," she said softly. "But he's his father's son. Some truths, my dear, can't be polished away with love." The words hung heavy between us. I turned to leave, my chest burning with fury. At the door, I paused. Was that what the whisper was then? A warning? She met my gaze, her expression unreadable. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe it was a test." Ryan was home when I got back, sitting on the couch with his laptop open, looking up the moment I walked in. "Hey," he said, smiling. "Where have you been?" I dropped my bag by the door. "At Barker & Sons," I said evenly. His face went pale. I needed to know the truth. He set the laptop aside slowly. "Claire—" "Don't," I cut in, my voice sharp. "Don't lie to me again. I know the ring was for Emily." The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, he exhaled, rubbing his face. "Okay," he said quietly. "Yes, it was." The confession hit harder than I expected, even though I'd already known. "I couldn't afford another one," he said quickly, the words tumbling out. "After she gave it back, I kept it. It didn't mean anything anymore. It was just a ring." I stared at him, trying to make sense of the excuses spilling from his mouth. "It didn't mean anything?" I repeated, incredulous. "You proposed to me with the same ring you used for someone else, and you think it doesn't mean anything?" He stood pacing, hands in his hair. "It was stupid, okay? Money was tight, and I thought it didn't matter. I love you, Claire. That's what counts." His voice cracked, and for a second, I almost believed the guilt in his eyes. But then I remembered Evelyn's words, Emily's hand in that photo, the caption. Some moments change everything. You could have told me, I said softly. You had every chance. You let me wear her ring like it was mine, like it was special. It is special, he said desperately. It's ours now. No, I whispered, shaking my head. It never was. He reached for me, but I stepped back, his touch now a stranger's. You keep saying it's about money, I said. But it's not. It's about honesty. You didn't just reuse a ring, you recycled a promise. His face hardened, frustration flashing through the remorse. You're blowing this out of proportion. The words sealed it. I looked at him, really looked, and saw not a man who'd made a mistake, but one who'd been caught. My heart ached, but my voice was steady when I said, No, Ryan, I'm finally seeing it in proportion. The message came 2 days later, just when I thought I couldn't be more blindsided. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the engagement ring lying in its box, when my phone buzzed. A name flashed across the screen, Emily Carter. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it. My heart kicked hard as I opened the message. Hi, Claire. I'm sorry to reach out like this, but I saw your engagement announcement. I think we need to talk. It's about Ryan. My throat went dry. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to shut my phone and pretend I hadn't seen anything, but curiosity, or maybe survival, won. We agreed to meet the next afternoon at a quiet cafe downtown. When I walked in, I spotted her instantly. Emily was beautiful in a quiet, effortless way. Brown hair tucked behind her ears, eyes soft but guarded. She smiled when she saw me, but there was sadness in it. You must think this is strange, she began as we sat down. But I had to warn you. I folded my hands, trying to steady my voice. Warn me about what? She hesitated. Ryan. She looked down, stirring her coffee. When we were together, he wasn't who he pretends to be. He needed control over everything. Where I went, who I saw, even what I wore to work events. At first, it felt like he cared. But it wasn't love, it was ownership. My stomach twisted, but I stayed silent. She went on, her voice trembling. And his mother? Evelyn encouraged it. She'd tell me how a proper wife should behave, how I needed to make him feel in charge. When I tried to set boundaries, Ryan accused me of being selfish. That's when I ended it. I swallowed hard, the air in my lungs turning heavy. He told me you broke it off because you weren't ready for commitment. Emily gave a small, humorless laugh. That's what he told me you'd say. I sat there, feeling the pieces click into place. The ring, the secrecy, Evelyn's quiet cruelty. You're not the first woman he's done this to, Emily said softly. Just promise me. Don't let him decide who you are. When she stood to leave, she touched my arm gently. I hope you get out before it hurts more than it already does. As I watched her walk away, I realized something bone-deep and terrifying. History wasn't just repeating, it was already halfway written. Ryan found out that same night. I didn't know how. Maybe Evelyn told him, or maybe Emily did, but the moment I stepped through the door, I knew. He was waiting in the living room, pacing, his face tight with fury. You met her, he said flatly. Emily. My pulse quickened. She reached out to me, I said carefully. I thought I deserved to hear the truth. The truth? He snapped. She's bitter, Claire. She'll say anything to make me look bad. He took a step closer, eyes blazing. You believe her over me? His voice was rising, sharp enough to make me flinch. I'm trying to believe something, I shot back. Because you've lied to me, Ryan. About the ring, about your past, about everything. I lied because I didn't want to lose you, he shouted, the words echoing against the walls. You don't get it. She ruined my life. And now you're letting her ruin this too. He grabbed the back of a chair, knuckles white, his whole body trembling. For a moment I saw it. The man Emily had described. The one who needed to control everything, even the truth. This isn't about her, I said quietly. This is about you. About the way you twist things to make yourself the victim. Don't talk to me like that, he snapped, his tone sharp, commanding. You're my fiancé. Something in me broke at that word. Fiancé. The way he said it, like a title he owned. I took a slow breath and reached for the velvet box on the counter. Not anymore. His eyes widened as I placed it in his hand. Claire, you can keep it, I said, my voice shaking but firm. It's always been yours anyway. The silence stretched. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I turned toward the door, my heartbeat steady for the first time in days. Behind me, he called my name, but I didn't stop. Outside, the air was cool and clean, the night sky endless. I looked down at my bare hand, lighter now without the ring's weight, and whispered to myself. This time, I gave it back by choice. 2 days after I ended the engagement, my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach twist. Evelyn Hayes. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. I answered, my voice flat. What do you want? For a moment there was only silence. Then her calm, composed tone floated through the line. You did the right thing, Claire, she said. He needed to be exposed. Her words hit like ice. Exposed? I repeated. You make it sound like this was all part of a plan. In a way, it was, she said. Ryan has always been his father's son. Controlling, image-obsessed. I told myself he'd change with the right woman, but deep down, I knew he wouldn't. When I saw you with that ring, I realized he was repeating history, so I gave you a nudge. A nudge? I could hear the disbelief in my own voice. You humiliated me in the middle of my engagement party. And you found the truth, she replied evenly. You saw what kind of man my son really is. That's more than most women ever get. My chest tightened, anger and confusion battling inside me. You could have just told me, I said quietly. You didn't have to play games. Evelyn sighed, her tone almost wistful. You wouldn't have believed me. They never do. For a heartbeat, I didn't know what to say. She sounded almost proud, as if orchestrating my heartbreak was a clever strategy, not cruelty. So what was it then? I asked. A warning? A test? Both, she said simply. And you passed. Her calmness chilled me more than any scream could. Goodbye, Evelyn, I said, ending the call before she could answer. I sat in silence for a long time, the phone still warm in my hand. Her words echoed in my head. You passed. She thought she'd broken me, but she was wrong. That whisper, the one meant to unravel me, had done the opposite. It hadn't destroyed me. It had forced me to see the truth. And for the first time in weeks, I realized I was free. 6 months later, I barely recognized the woman I'd been. My engagement had ended, but my life had finally begun. I'd thrown myself into work, pouring my energy into a new marketing campaign that quickly became my proudest achievement. The late nights didn't drain me anymore. They fueled me. My phone no longer buzzed with Ryan's messages or Evelyn's veiled pleasantries. It was filled with plans, projects, and people who actually cared. I moved into a new apartment, a bright corner unit with big windows and light that spilled across the hardwood floors. It wasn't grand or expensive, but it was mine. No ghosts, no memories. I painted the walls a soft sage green, filled the space with plants and laughter, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like home. When Jordan helped me move in, he stood in the doorway, grinning. "This place feels like you," he said. "Warm, peaceful, and about 10 steps above anyone who ever underestimated you." I laughed, tossing a cushion at him, but his words stuck. He'd been there through every unraveling moment, a quiet anchor when everything else fell apart. And he wasn't the only one. Emily reached out again a few weeks later, cautiously at first. I expected awkwardness, but what grew instead was understanding. We met for coffee, no bitterness between us, just two women who'd survived the same storm. Somehow, Jordan and Emily became friends too. The three of us would grab dinner sometimes, trading stories that no longer hurt. It was strange, healing alongside the person I once saw as my rival. One night, as we laughed over cheap wine and takeout, I realized I was no longer angry, not at Ryan, not even at Evelyn. They'd been part of my story, but they didn't define it. I did. The scars they left weren't weaknesses. They were proof of strength earned. I'd been tested, broken, and rebuilt into someone stronger. The woman who once wore someone else's ring was gone. In her place stood someone who knew her worth, who didn't need a diamond to prove it. Sometimes, the truth hides behind diamonds and smiles, behind promises whispered in candlelight, behind perfect photos meant to convince the world that love is unbreakable. I used to think forever meant holding on no matter what, but now I know, sometimes forever is what you find when you finally let go. That ring once felt like proof of everything I wanted: love, commitment, security. But it wasn't proof. It was a mask. A recycled promise wrapped in gold, polished just enough to pass for something new. The truth is, a ring can't bind what's built on lies. It can shine, it can sparkle, it can make your heart flutter, but it can't hide what's real. I learned that love without honesty is just performance. That the people who try to control your story don't get to write your ending. I spent months rebuilding, piece by piece, learning how to live for myself again. There were nights I missed him, mornings I questioned if walking away was too harsh. But every doubt faded when I remembered the look in his eyes that night, the moment I realized he wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was only sorry he'd been caught. That was the turning point. The day I stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" The day I chose myself. Because self-worth isn't loud or flashy, it's quiet. It's the peace that comes from knowing you can stand on your own 2 feet, even when the ground's been ripped out from under you. It's walking past jewelry stores without flinching, seeing engagement announcements without envy. It's looking in the mirror and knowing you're whole, even without someone else's last name attached to yours. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. And when it does, it doesn't destroy you, it frees you. So to anyone listening, anyone who's uncovered a painful truth and thought it might break them, it won't. It's the first step toward becoming who you were meant to be. If you've ever had to walk away from what you thought was love just to find yourself again, share your story below. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.